Women don't always communicate in a direct way. Most of the time, it comes through small, simple, casual questions, things that are easy to overlook. But behind those words, there's often a bit of intention, a bit of curiosity, and sometimes even interest. In this video, we're breaking down those kinds of questions, the ones that sound completely normal on the surface, but actually carry a deeper meaning, so you can understand what's really going on without overthinking everything. The first one is, can you help me with something? At first, this seems like a basic request, nothing special, right? But if you pay close attention, it's not always just about the help. Sometimes the task is so small that she could easily handle it on her own, yet she still chooses to ask you. That's because the real goal isn't the task, it's the interaction. It gives her a natural and comfortable reason to start a conversation, spend a little time around you, and see how you respond. And while you're helping, she's not just focused on the situation, she's also observing you. Your attitude, your patience, your energy, the way you carry yourself. It's a low-pressure way for her to get a little closer without making it obvious. So even though it looks like a simple question, it can sometimes be her way of creating a moment of connection. The second one is, have you been working out? This one sounds super casual, and most people don't think much of it. But in many cases, there's actually a quiet compliment hidden inside. When she asks this, it usually means she's noticed something different about you. Maybe it's your physique, your style, or just your overall presence. Instead of directly saying, "You look good," she phrases it as a question, which feels more natural and less forward. But the important part is this: she noticed. And people don't usually pick up on small changes unless they've been paying attention. That means you've been on her radar. It's a subtle way of showing interest while still keeping things light and casual. So next time you hear something like this, don't just brush it off as small talk. Sometimes it's her way of giving a compliment and letting you know that she's been noticing you. Something. Instead of simply saying, "You look good," she turns it into a question. It comes off more natural, less direct, but the message still gets across. And the fact that she notices small changes about you already says something important. People don't usually pick up on details like that unless their attention is already on you. So on the surface, it might feel like casual curiosity, but underneath it can be a subtle way of giving a compliment while also showing that you've been on her mind more than you think. The third one is, what kind of girls are you into? This is one of those questions that sounds random at first, but usually isn't. When she asks this, she's not just making small talk. She's trying to understand your preferences, and more importantly, where she fits into that picture. As you describe your type, she's naturally comparing it in her mind. Does she match it? Is she close to it? Or completely different? That comparison happens quietly in the background of the conversation, and her reactions matter a lot here. If she starts smiling more, engaging deeper, or reacting to similarities between herself and what you're saying, that's her way of staying involved in the moment without directly saying anything. Because let's be honest, asking, "Do you like me?" is too direct and risky. So instead, this question becomes a safer way for her to gather the same kind of information in a more subtle way. It's less about the words themselves and more about what's happening underneath the conversation. What you usually do on weekends, I know this one sounds like basic small talk, right? But there's often a bit more going on underneath it. When she asks this, she's not just trying to pass time or fill silence in the conversation. She's actually trying to get a clearer picture of your lifestyle, what you enjoy, how you spend your free time, and what your normal world looks like outside of this moment. And while you're answering, she's mentally placing herself into that picture. She's thinking about whether your routine, your interests, and your energy would naturally align with hers. In simple terms, she's trying to see if there's a potential connection beyond just the current conversation. Depending on what you say, you might notice her reacting differently. She could agree, get curious, or even say things like, "That sounds fun," or "I've always wanted to try that." Those are subtle ways of keeping the conversation open and flowing. It's not always obvious, but it can be her way of gently exploring whether there's a possibility of spending time together in the future without directly saying it. Next is, what are you doing later? This one feels like normal conversation on the surface, but it often carries a bit more weight. She's not just asking to kill time, she's opening a small window into your plans. It's a way of checking your availability without directly asking to be included. The question leaves space for you to invite her in if the moment feels right. The tone matters a lot here. If it's asked casually but with a bit of curiosity, it can suggest she's hoping you're not too busy or already fully booked. And if you respond in a relaxed way, like nothing much, it naturally creates an opportunity to suggest meeting up or continuing the interaction outside the conversation. So even though it sounds simple, it can actually be a soft way of testing whether spending more time together is possible. Next is, what do you do for fun? Women usually don't ask this just to collect information. They're trying to understand your personality when you're most relaxed, what excites you, what motivates you, and what your lifestyle really looks like beyond responsibilities. At the same time, she's listening for points of connection, something she can relate to or respond to with interest, like, I like that too, or that sounds fun. It also helps her imagine what it would actually feel like to spend time with you in real life. Because if your idea of fun matches hers, it naturally creates a sense of compatibility and makes further connection feel easier and more natural. So yeah, on the surface, it sounds like a normal question, but in reality, it can also be a way of checking whether your lifestyles match and whether there's anything worth exploring between you two. Next, what's your favorite food or restaurant? This one seems random, but usually there's a bit of intention behind it. When she asks this, it's not just about food or taste preferences. Often she's trying to create an easy opening for future interaction. Because if you mention a place or type of food you like, she can naturally respond with things like, I like that too, or I've always wanted to try that. And just like that, the conversation quietly shifts from talking to the possibility of doing something together without it feeling forced or planned. Food also makes things easier and more comfortable. It's a universal topic, so it keeps the vibe light while still leaving room for something more. So even though it looks simple, it can actually be a subtle way of testing the idea of a future hangout. Next, who do you live with? At first, this sounds like basic casual talk, but there's often a bit more behind it. She's not just asking about your living situation randomly. She's trying to understand your life structure. Are you living alone, with roommates, or is there someone important in your life already? It's also a softer way of figuring out your relationship status without directly asking it. At the same time, it gives her clues about how independent your lifestyle is and what your daily routine might look like. So while it feels like simple small talk, it's actually her way of gathering small details to understand where you stand and whether there's space for her in your life. Next, you seem like you get a lot of attention, don't you? This one sounds like a light comment, but it's often a subtle test. She's watching how you react more than the words themselves. Does she get confidence from you? Do you deny it quickly? Or do you agree too easily? At the same time, she's also trying to understand how others see you, because being noticed by others says something about your presence and social energy, and your response can shift the whole direction of the conversation. So even though it looks casual, it's often her way of checking your confidence and how naturally you carry yourself without directly asking. Next, are you more of a homebody or do you go out a lot? This question is usually about lifestyle compatibility. She's trying to understand your normal routine, how social you are, how you spend your time, and what kind of energy you bring outside of this moment. At the same time, she's quietly comparing it with her own lifestyle. If she's outgoing, she's seeing whether you can match that energy. If she's more chill, she's imagining how that dynamic would work too. So it's not just small talk, it's her way of figuring out whether your lives naturally align and whether there's enough overlap to build something further. And that's the bigger picture. Most of these questions aren't just about answers. They're about compatibility and connection.